how would you describe the state of things at the property in August of 2019?
Extremely tense.
I mean, everything just was materializing more and more every day that she was doing, and he was absolutely unraveling.
Do you recall generally what his demeanor was?
Out of his mind.
What was the culmination of those things falling apart?
I would have to say the day Michael drove the truck down and tried to murder us.
It was one of the wildest phone calls I've ever had in my entire career. I heard her say, "Oh my God, there's Barrisone. He's got a gun," or something like that. And then I heard what I thought were gunshots.
He pulled out a gun and shot me once, twice, directly in the chest.
Just not him. He wasn't him. It was hard to talk to him. I was concerned about him.
Things are becoming increasingly strange.
He feels his life is threatened by Law&Crime and Robert Goodman.
Did you have a plan to destroy Michael Barrisone?
At some point, yes.
On August 7th, 2019, he's accused of taking a gun, leaving that clubhouse that I talked about, getting into his car in the parking lot, driving up the driveway over that slight rise, coming into the back parking lot where the farmhouse is, getting out with that gun, two people who were living in the farmhouse, pointing the gun at the woman, Law&Crime, and shooting her twice in the chest. Then turning the gun on Robert Goodwin, her boyfriend, as he fled into the house and shooting another shot at Robert, but missing. You're going to hear about how bad things were at Hawthorne Hill in August of 2019. You'll hear about how the defendant and his girlfriend, Mary Haskins, were hassling and giving a hard time to Lauren and Rob. And you'll hear how Lauren and Rob were giving a hard time back. You're going to hear how they were really arguing on an almost daily basis at that point. How the police had been called out to the property starting July 31st on almost a daily basis because these people just could not get along.
It's a tragedy that Law&Crime was shot on that day. That said, there is another tragedy, a tragedy that will be played out in this courtroom. The tragic story of Michael Barrisone, an Olympic athlete, a world-class dressage trainer, a man who on the outside appeared strong, confident, in total control. But what the evidence will show, a much different picture. What this case is really about, it's about Law&Crime, her father and her boyfriend, devising a plan to destroy this man and drive him crazy. My client is not guilty. At the time of the shooting, my client feared for his life. He was suffering from a mental disease and did not know what he was doing was wrong.
Where's the shooter? Mr. Goodwin, the man on top, replied, "Here." I asked again. He was on top of Mr. Barrisone's back. He shook him by his shoulders and said, "This is the shooter." I rolled Mr. Barrisone onto his right side, and his right arm was visible. His left arm was under his torso. When I rolled him to his right side, I could see his hand was open and the gun was lying next to it.
You advised Goodwin to get off of Michael Barrisone, correct?
Yes,
And based on your observation, Mr. Goodwin was in complete control of Barrisone when you asked him to do that, correct?
yes,
Isn't it a fact that when you arrived on the scene as the second person, Michael Barrisone was partially conscious?
Yes.
By July of 2019, how would you describe the relationship between yourself and Michael Barrisone with Lauren Canarac and Rob Good?
2019,
Yes.
the environment in the stable and around them was really unhealthy and toxic.
During the course of July 2019 and August 2019, there were conversations between you and the defendant about ways to get rid of Lauren Canarac and Rob Good.
Yes, to get them off the farm, yes.
Did you ever see Michael Barrisone break down in response to what he saw on those social media posts?
Yes, sir.
And can you describe some of those instances to the jury?
He continued to become more and more fearful, to unravel, to be in panic, sheer panic. To say we were concerned or worried is an understatement. But as things escalated day by day, his deterioration increased.
Did he ever break down and literally get into a fetal position?
Yes, sir.
You witnessed that.
Yes, sir.
Can you describe your observations of Michael Barrisone, say for the last 2 or 3 days prior to the shooting?
I would say he was in an almost catatonic state. Hadn't been sleeping, eating, glazed over look in his eyes, just zombie.
Bathing?
No,
Shaving?
no.
Do you recall generally what his demeanor was?
Out of his mind.
Did your relationship change?
Yes,
And would you say that it got better or worse?
worse.
What was the worst thing Michael Barrisone ever did to you?
Tried to violently murder me on August 7th of 2019.
Did you ever make a complaint to Safe Sport?
I did.
Did you ever make a complaint against Mary Haskins or Michael Barrisone to Safe Sport?
I did. Mostly just bullying and scare tactics and things like that, and just a show of, power over someone smaller, basically.
Did you make any complaint against Michael Barrisone for sexual abuse?
No,
Did you ever make any complaints to Child Protection or whatever acronym or name you may know them to be?
no.
It's DCP&P. It's what DIFUS is called nowadays in New Jersey, basically Child Protective. Apparently, a report had been filed with Child Protective that children, these were children of Mary Haskins Gray, Mr. Barrisone, not his children, but her children, who had visited the farm from time to time. And these documents made a report, an anonymous report, because these reports are always anonymous, that these children were in some kind of danger. Barrisone believed that he had been reported to the town by Canarac and Goodwin. Not sure who reported to town, but he believed Cataract and Goodwin did that.
What did he specifically tell you with regards to that contact with DCPP?
It was the final straw.
Did you hear Michael Barasone say anything?
Yes.
What did you hear him say?
I heard him say, mostly speaking to Rob at that point, I don't want a war. How do I fix this? How can I make this all better?
When I came out, he looked over at me and said, how do we fix this? I don't want a war, and showed me his hands and threw them up in the air.
Walked over to him and said, how do you plan to make this better? How do you, you have a bill or some, I was saying something about the bill that he had to settle with Rob, but I didn't get that far because
Why not?
the minute I started talking pretty much, within the minute I started talking, he pulled out a gun and shot me once, twice, directly in the chest.
I was on the phone with our attorney, Edward David.
What was the reason for having an attorney?
Like I said, I think I think we ultimately wanted to try to work out the relationship with Michael and the horses.
It was one of the wildest phone calls I've ever had in my entire career. I heard her say, oh my God, there's Barasone. He's got a gun or something like that. And then I heard what I thought were gunshots. And I said, Lauren, are you okay? I believe she said something like he shot me in the heart or the chest. And then I heard the phone drop, and I was obviously in shock.
He shot me, and then he raised the gun up and immediately took a shot at Rob. And when I looked at the porch, I no longer saw Rob, so I fully thought that he was shot in the head and killed at that moment.
They had about 1 second to make a decision, and the decision was he was running up. I was in the house, and I pretty much had to leap and punch him.
And so that means he was coming up those stairs towards you?
He was coming for me, yes.
I saw Robert on top of Michael. The first thing that I saw was that Michael had the gun directly underneath him, and Rob was on top of him with, I believe he had Michael's left arm like just held behind his back, and he was over him. I don't know, the only thing I kept seeing though, other than that, was that there was that gun right there, just right there. And if Rob had let go or something, couldn't keep hold of anymore, it would be so easy for Michael to just get that gun and fire more shots. I, at some point during all of this, decided to take my phone, and I felt myself losing energy. But in spite of that, I took my phone and I started hitting Michael on the side of the head with it, thinking that maybe this will help if Robert is losing his grip on Michael.
How many times did you see Lauren Cataract hit Michael Barasone with her telephone in the ear and the cheek area?
A few times I've seen Lauren. She was also in the fight for her life.
Did you have a plan to destroy Michael Barasone?
At some point, yes.
And isn't it a fact that you made a specific threat saying that you intended to destroy everything Mary Haskins loved and held dear?
At some point, yes.
At some point in time, you start bad-mouthing Michael Barrisone to people in the industry and on social media, correct?
Correct.
You tell people that he abuses and neglects horses, correct?
I don't know if I said all of that, but it could be correct. It did happen, so I might have said it.
You even called him a criminal.
I don't believe I called him a criminal. It's possible though, I'm not gonna say it never happened.
You were posting things daily, correct?
Correct.
And a lot of those were about Michael Barrisone and Mary Haskins, correct?
Correct.
And would you agree that some of those things could be considered threatening?
Yeah, I could agree to that.
Was it your intention to scare Michael Barrisone?
Maybe at a point.
What point was that?
I don't recall, after being bullied and tortured for weeks and days.
Isn't it a fact that part of your plan to destroy Michael Barrisone was to get him kicked out of the stable area and make him homeless?
Maybe.
Maybe?
Yes, maybe.
He became increasingly terrified of Miss Canarac and increasingly terrified of what he believed Lauren Canarac could do to him and to his girlfriend, Mary Haskins Gray. And over the time, certainly over the last month or two prior to the incident, he became increasingly terrified of what he regarded as Lauren's power to destroy him.
At the time of the shooting, he suffered from a mental disorder, a psychotic break, a delusional disorder, which degraded his thinking to such an extent that he did not know what he was doing was wrong.
Given Michael's situation now and the circumstances he are in, this is all reality-based. This is not a delusion or a psychosis. This is what he's experiencing right now. There's no basis at all to conclude that the results of the MMPI shows paranoid psychosis. It does not. It absolutely does not.
The only evidence as to how the shooting occurred comes from both Canarac and Goodwin. The investigation starts and stops with them. It stops with Robert Goodwin pointing to Michael Barrisone and saying he's the shooter. Two people who I had indicated in my opening, and I believe the evidence has confirmed, have a motive to lie, who have changed their stories, left important things out, important facts, and have now walked into this courtroom, put their hand on this Bible, looked you all in the eyes, and lied to you. Again, a witness who admitted on the stand to having a plan to destroy Michael Barrisone. Stop and think for a second of the magnitude of that statement. She made a conscious decision to try to destroy someone. She knew he was emotionally unstable. She knew she was scaring him. She knew that all the things that she was doing, like posting his own words and taunting him with them, would cause him to go insane.
Basically, Mr. Belinkis said, you can't convict a defendant because the only evidence that he's guilty comes from two liars. Two, I think he said, despicable people. They can't be believed. Well, the judge is going to tell you that you're the sole judges of the facts. You decide credibility, not Mr. Belinkis. Then he lifts up a gun and he points to them. And when she's no closer than I am to Mr. Belinkis, he starts shooting her in the chest. And Mr. Belinkis says, well, you can't believe anything she says, because at that point, when her body cavities, her torso is literally filling up with blood, her lungs are punctured, you heard that testimony, and her body is filling with her blood as it's pumping, not into her veins, but into her body, that she feels like it's an eternity. You heard her on a 911 call. Was that true? Was she acting? If you don't believe that the defendant can convince you that he has delusional disorder, then you should reject the defense of insanity.
With regard to count 1, attempted murder of Lauren Canarak, what is your verdict?
Not guilty by reason of insanity.
With regard to count 2, attempted murder of Robert Goodwin, what is your verdict, sir?
Not guilty.
With regard to count 2, the lesser included offense of aggravated assault upon Robert Goodwin, what is your verdict?
Not guilty.
Count 1 is a not guilty by reason of insanity. Count 3 is not guilty by reason of insanity. There was an acquittal on counts 2 and 4. Because of that, the defendant, Mr. Barrisone, will now be civilly committed.